Everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you today how to do a bracelet featuring cup buttons that I'm going to be calling the full around cups. The whole bracelet will have the cup buttons going around, with the clasp also being one of these cup button sections. For this, I'm going to be using approximately 8 cup buttons, and the color that I've chosen to use for my cup buttons for our bracelet that we're making together is the Opal Red Luster. It's a purpley pink color of cup button, and approximately 8 depending on your wrist size. In addition to our cup buttons, it's going to be featuring Rullas and SuperDuo, also products of the Czech Republic. The color of Rullas that I'm going to be using is the white gray luster color. And the color of SuperDuos is the Jet Copper SuperDuo. It's almost a deep, deep brown, almost a black color. It's going to play off and show those cup buttons nicely. For my 11-0 seed bead that I'm going to be using, I'm using a silver-lined light amethyst color. And then I have the Crystal Fool in the 8-0s, so a check coating on those 8-0s that I'm working with. In addition to my beads, I'm going to be working with Wildfire beading thread, 0.006 in a white color. And then I have 2 size 10 needles. And I usually keep them in a container like this. We also have needle storage containers that you can put labels on the outside. But we're going to be using 2 of those needles at one time. I also have sitting nearby my thread burner to cut my thread off my roll here. And then I have a needle nose pliers to flatten out that thread as I get ready to put it into the needle. I'm working on a bead mat, which is a felted mat that makes it nice to pick up the beads and that they don't roll around. Also, you may want to have a tube of glue handy, and that can be used to finish off the ends after you've burned them when you are getting ready to tie your knots at the very, very end. I'm going to get started with my bracelet down here at the end, and I'm going to be using both of those needles. So I've taken about 5 feet of beading thread and I've put a needle on each end. So it's sharing there that beading thread that we're working on. What I'm going to be doing is putting on an 8-0, and then we'll add the cup button as we make the bracelet for the clasp. So I'm going to start with one of my 8-0 beads, and again this is the silver Labrador color. I'm going to put an 8-0 on my right needle and then on my left needle. And then I'm going to crisscross through a 4th bead. This is going to get that little shape right there that we're going to achieve with our 8-0s. It's going to be a diamond shape or a cross shape depending on how you're looking at it. And this pattern here is going to be used throughout the bracelet. So we put on 1 bead through our needles, 1 bead on the right, 1 bead on the left, and then we crisscross through a 4th bead. When you're looking at that and getting done, you want to make sure that your thread on either side, after you put on those first beads, are still consistent, that it's not off-centered. You want to keep it nice and in the middle, so that way you don't end up with more than one side with a lot of thread rather than the other side. As we get going here, we're going to be working with the 2 needles simultaneously. Anything that happens with the right needle is also going to happen with the left needle. You can choose to do this bracelet with 1 needle, but I find it easier to do it with 2. When we're working here, again, anything on the right is also going to happen on the left. On the right-hand side, I'm going to put 1 11-0, 2 SuperDuos, and 1 11-0. Knowing that the same thing that happens on the right happens on the left, we're going to do the same thing on the left-hand side. 1 11-0, 2 SuperDuos, 1 11-0. And I'm going to let that drop down next to that little cross of 8-0s that we've created. Now I'm going to get ready to add my cup button. The cup button is going to sit upright, and we're going to put some SuperDuos in between. We're going to fill that cup with the SuperDuos so you can see that color in it. I'm going to take 1 needle going through the back, the bottom side of the cup, 1 needle through one hole, 1 needle through the other hole. At the same time, I'm going to drop one of my SuperDuos, same color. If you would like, you can also feature another color in that SuperDuo, that's up to you, and use 2 colors of the SuperDuos in the cups. And I'm going to drop that jet copper bead down. What's going to happen is that it's going to sit right next to those 11-0 beads that are the SuperDuos on the side. Once the needle's coming out on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, what we're going to do is we're going to basically reinforce that. The needle that's on the right is going to go down the SuperDuo and the cup button on the left-hand side, coming out the back there. I don't want to go through the 11-0, so you want to bring it out before the 11-0, just right after the button. On the other side, the needle that was on the left is going to get switched to the right, going through that SuperDuo and that cup button, and we're going to pull it through. I'm going to pull nice and tight and get rid of all that thread that you see there. On the SuperDuo, then on the top, you'll see a little bit of thread that's coming through the top there. You want to keep that in mind as you're creating, because since you are going to see it a little bit there, you want to keep that in your design plan. If you want to, you can also take a permanent marker and you can color it to whatever color you want that thread to be on the top. If I wanted it to be that brown color, I could color it there. On the back side then of the cup button is where I'm going to flip over just so you can see what's going on. The needle that's on the left-hand side is going to repeat the pattern that we did before the cup button, and the same with the right. I have 111/0, 2 SuperDuos, and 111/0. I'm going to let that drop down on the left, and I'm going to pick up my right needle and do the same thing. 111/0, 2 SuperDuos, 111/0. After I have those on, I'm going to repeat my little diamond shape here that I did with my 8/0s. I'm going to crisscross through my first 8/0, one needle going from right to left and the other going from left to right. And I'm going to pull those cords down, pulling the thread down so you can see then the effect that the SuperDuos have with the cup button. So you can see there, the SuperDuos are going to get pushed out to the side, and that's what's going to be the base of our bracelet as we're working on it. So those SuperDuos are going to line the whole bottom of the cup buttons. Instead of putting an 8/0 on either side, here's where I'm going to introduce the Rullas, and I'm going to pick up this gray Rulla on my right needle and also a gray Rulla on the left needle. The next thing I'm going to do is just like I did with the 8/0, I'm going to crisscross through another 8/0 on the other side of the Rullas. That's a lot of thread there because we're going to be going up and down the project 2 times. And we're going to have then the SuperDuos and then the Rullas, and then we're going to start over. When you flip it on the top, you can see the pattern starting that is just like the sample, which in here it's those blue tavertine or blue Picasso beads. Here it's going to be repeating with our jet copper beads. So on either side now we're going to do just like we did before. Goes 111/0, 2 SuperDuos, 111/0. Let that drop down next to your project. On the other needle, same thing, 111, 2 SuperDuos, 111. Here's where we add our cup button. The cup button, we're going to go through the back of the cup button with the left needle and the right needle. Coming out the top, you're going to slide a SuperDuo onto the needle, needle going through each hole. When I get to the top again, I'm going to take the needle that was on the left-hand side and go to the right, and the needle on the right and go to the left, going through both the SuperDuo and the cup bead and coming out right after. Again, making sure I'm not going through that 11/0 bead. I'm going to give a nice tight pull to tighten up that thread, and then repeat again with that pattern of 111/0, 2 SuperDuos, 111/0. Same thing on left and right. After I have this, it's the same pattern over and over again, where then my needle on either side, I'm going to pick up one of my 8/0 beads, and anytime for this first row I pick up an 8/0 bead from now on, I'm going to be crisscrossing my needles through. This also completes the base of the cup button. You want to make sure when you're making this that the cup buttons all face the same direction. So you want to push the cup button up. Or if you're working on it back, push the cup button down. You don't want your cup buttons going every which way. Oh, I missed my 11/0 there. Once you have the 8/0 bead on, then you're going to do your Rulla on each side. So the Rulla is going to happen on each side here. I just had to take that off there because I forgot an 11/0. My Rulla goes on the left and right. and then I'm going to crisscross through an 8-0. And then I start the pattern over again with the 11-0 and the SuperDuo on each side. So this pattern continues the whole length of your bracelet. Again, you're looking to do about 7 to 8 of your cup buttons depending on the size of your bracelet. Once you have those cup buttons also in place, then we'll get ready to show you how to do the clasp closure part. That's going to have an opening basically where the cup button was, but it's going to be designed the exact same way. So I'm just showing as I'm continuing, I'm making sure that all of my cup buttons are facing the correct direction. I'm making that little cross section with the Rullas and my 8-0 seed beads, and the SuperDuos and the 11-0s are kind of hiding behind my cup buttons right now. You'll see those more as we do the next layer in our design. And I'm continuing to make this. I have 6 on here, and I'm going to be putting on 8 total. The 9th little section that I do, again, I'm going to keep open because that's going to attach and use my clasp button on the first one here as my closure. So I have my 8 cup buttons here on my bracelet. There's the back and here's the front of them just kind of hanging out there. Right now the bracelet's going to move around until we build that nice base foundation with our extra beads here going the other way. What we're going to do now is basically create the same thing, but we're going to create an open hole that the cup button will fit in to use as a clasp closure. So I'm at the end of one of my rows here, as if I were going to go on and add my 9th cup button. Depending on your size of your wrist, you definitely may want to add that 9th cup button. So instead of adding my cup button, all I'm going to do is I'm going to pour out some more of my SuperDuos here. I'm going to put on 1 11-0, 2 of my SuperDuos, 2 11-0s, and 2 SuperDuos, followed by 1 11-0. So basically it's the same pattern as we have underneath our cup button, but we just didn't put the cup button on. Again, on my left, 1 11-0, 2 duos, 2 11-0s, 2 duos, 1 11-0. I'm going to finish my loop then here with one of my 8-0 beads going from right to left and left to right. And that's going to create that loop here that I'm going to use to put through my cup button when I get to the other side. So it's actually going to link back to this cup button here. On this other side here also what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the same thing that I did on this first side here, making that little cross section with just the 8-0s, not the Rullas. So an 8-0 goes on the left, 8-0 on the right, and then I'm going to crisscross through another 8-0. And that's going to finish my end of my bracelet. If you're unsure of the length, you can test right now, laying it on your wrist and making sure that it's going to be enough space to go back through that last cup button. Once you have this in place, we're going to basically connect down the sides and add some more SuperDuos. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump from the outside here to that first SuperDuo by going through the 11 or the 8-0 on the side and then jumping to the SuperDuo. So on each side I'm going to put 1 11-0 and I'm going to go through the 8-0 that's on the side that I just added. So 1 11-0 and then go down through the side. Now what's going to happen with my needles are they're going to stay to the left side and the right side as I'm working. On the right side here, and this, it doesn't really matter whether or not it's the top or the bottom of your bracelet, either way works. So I'm going to pick up this needle that's on the right on the back side. I'm going to add 1 11-0 and sew through a SuperDuo. When I'm coming out a SuperDuo goes on. When I'm at the section between my 11-0s here, or in this case, at the back of the cup button where I put the cup button on, that's where we're going to add our Rullas. So when you look at the back here, the Rulla is going to sit right in the middle. So a Rulla is going to get added, and I'm going to sew through the next SuperDuo. Another SuperDuo gets added between that bead set of 2, and then sew down. When I'm in between my rows here of my SuperDuo and my Rulla, what I'm going to do is basically join that section there with just one of my 11 beads. So the pattern's going to repeat, that it's 11 SuperDuo, Rulla, SuperDuo, 11. On either side of the Rullas here on the sides, go in 11. 11 connects to the next cut button area. And then I have my SuperDuos going in, and my Rulla next. I'm doing this on the right hand needle just because it's faster to just hold one side, and then what I'll do is I will repeat the same thing on the left hand side. So I'm going to go just a couple places down, adding these in, and then I'm going to switch and I'm going to do the same thing on my left hand side. So on the left here, on is going to go an 11 bead. And this is just to show that it's on the left. What I'm going to do now is kind of twist it over to the right hand side so it's easier to hold. On goes a SuperDuo, on goes a Rulla. In between the V of the SuperDuo goes another SuperDuo. And then at the end of each little section here, oops, I'll twist it up. At the end of each little section, I am going to put on, I'm sewing back through different beads here, grabbing different strings. Got everything all twisted. There we go. So at the end of each little section again, it just gets an 11. And the 11 is going to connect to my Rullas. So the Rullas that are already existing are going to have 11 on either side, and they're going to connect with the 11 to the SuperDuos, adding a SuperDuo between the V of the SuperDuo, and then picking up one of my Rullas in between on the sides. I'm going to continue doing this again the whole way on the left, whole way on the right, as I get down to the very bottom to my starter cup bead. So I've gotten to the end here, adding my SuperDuos, Rullas, and 11 beads. Here's the back of the bracelet, and here's the front of the bracelet now. You can see that color pop of the SuperDuos a lot better now. The 11 are just starting to come into place so you can see them just a little bit. And when I get to the end here of my bracelet, what I'm going to be doing actually is coming back down one more time. To do that, I'm going to repeat what I did on side one, that I have my one SuperDuo, or one 11 sorry, going through my 8 adding another one, sewing through the end. So just kind of decorating up that end right there. Same thing on my left needle. On goes an 11 up through my 8 on the left, and then adding another one and going through the 8 at the end. If you want to, you don't have to do the little diamond on the end. You can start with just one 8. I find this the easier way to learn is to start and continue just like the whole bracelet is made. On the right side then, I'm going to take the needle that was on the left through the 11 through the 8 through the 11 that you just added, and then when I'm coming out the side here, basically I'm going to bridge that gap with 11 So I'm going to be using 4 11 and once I have them on, I'm going to sew through the open hole of the SuperDuo there at the top, and you can see it creates just a nice little rounded edge there at the end. I'm going to do the same thing on the left hand side. And then as I work down, and you can see on the example here on the back, I'm going to be using 11 3 on each side, and then going into a Rulla hole. And then in between the Rullas and the SuperDuos near the cut buttons, I'm going to be adding my 8 bead. So right now I'm between my SuperDuo and my Rulla, so my 8 Labrador bead gets added in. I'm going to continue sewing down. When I get here on the sides, here's where I'm going to use my 3 11 pick up that Rulla bead there. That's on the base row. Add 3 more 11 and when I'm coming out that Rulla, and sew through the top hole of the next SuperDuo. Again, in between the Rullas and the SuperDuos, go my 8-0 bead. Then when I'm after the second 8-0, 3 11-0s go on. I grab the outermost hole of the Rulla that's closest to that bead, sew through, 11 more go on, or 3 more 11-0s go on, and I go through the SuperDuo on the top hole. So you can start seeing that little boxy effect that's starting to happen. It's going on the right hand side, and I'm going to do the same thing on the left. On the left hand side, we're going to start just like we did the other side, where I'm going through the 11-0, down through the 8, and then also through the 11-0 bead. When I'm coming out that 11-0 bead, I'm going to add on 4 11-0s. 3 or 4 here, it doesn't really matter. And that's going to create my little pillowed end there. On goes my 8-0s as I come down through, and then I'm just going to continue here on the left hand side, that same thing that I did on the right hand side. And that's going to create my nice row of my bracelet. That's going to create that boxy effect. So as I'm coming around my project here, I'm finishing up, and I'm just continuing just like I did as if I had a cup button there as I get to this loop end. So I'm continuing adding my 3 11-0s to connect to my SuperDuos, and then my 8-0s here on the side. When I come to the side and the end of the SuperDuo here, I'm going to repeat just like I did on the other side with my 4 seed beads, and then going up through that 11-0, the 8-0, and the 11-0. Cross over to the other side. Just keep that needle there as I go flip over and finish up the other side here. So I have my 8-0s that I'm finishing up with, and my 3 11s connecting to my Rullas. Connecting to these over here, and then repeating just what I did here with my 8-0s, going through my Rulla and my duo. And then on this side here, I'm going to add my 4 11-0s, go up through my first 11-0 and my first 8-0. What that's going to do is end my threads right at the same place. I'm going to take my threads now and tie them together. You can take your needles off if you want. And I'm going to tie that tight, so that way, right when I get that finished, tying that tight clasp there, or that tight end there, I'm not going to be able to see that knot next to those beads. I'm going to let it relax just a little bit here. I'm going to take my thread burner, burn my threads off, do a little dab of glue, my super new glue there. If you ever get a little extra glue, you can just kind of tap it off on your bead mat. Let that dry just a little bit, and then take my thread ends and burn them down here with my thread burner. I just replaced my battery, you can tell that little smoke that's creating, and it has a little bit of a stink to it too. That's that super glue burning a little bit. And there you have it. That is my fool around cups. That it has my cups that are full with my SuperDuos, and it goes the whole way around, and it's going to clasp and close around the cup button here. Then you're just going to put the clasp closure over the cup button and pop it through there. The first 2 times or so may be a little bit tight. It's better to have it tight than loose, because when you're doing it, you don't want that cup button to fall off. If you pull tight like I do also, you may want to add an extra seed bead or so in on the clasp closure there. So when I'm going around the first time, I'm going to add a little SuperDuo or a little extra seed bead in there next time. But I want to pop that through. And once I get that through, then I'm going to have that completion of my bracelet. Like I said this first time, sorry to show me struggle. Oops. I'm going to come in from the other side. It is going to be tight. And then once you have it on there, bending that kind of last bead there down, I am going to have it go the whole way around. I'm going to spin that around there because I got it a little bit twisted off to the side. And there you have it. So you have that great look that the cup buttons go the whole way around the side. When you look at it from front to back, you can't really even tell where the bracelet started or ended. And it just has that nice look to it of a nice, consistent, almost cuff bracelet. So hopefully you have fun making this. Like I said, if you do want to not struggle quite as much, I get that. Go ahead and add one more seed bead on the inside here, and then you won't have that much of a struggle to put that button through there the first time. After the first or second time on, it'll be much easier to put on and off, but it has that really awesome look to it with that just unique cup button look that you won't see everywhere, and it gets that fun shape and design to it. So thanks a lot for watching. If you get a chance, you can pick up some of your materials at our Potomac Bead Company locations. If you can't get to our Potomac Bead Company locations, you can always shop online with us. We have the links below that we're happy to ship to you. Any of the products that you need, especially the cup buttons or any of these great Rullas and different check products. So thanks a lot for watching, and if you get a chance, you can also watch the rest of our YouTube videos and enjoy making a lot of our lovely designs.